Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and man, they done it. They pulled the trigger. We already knew this would happen, but throughout this training camp, it seemed like it was less likely to happen, but the writing was on the wall. Last year was this opportunity with a weak wide receiver core to go out there and shine because we were just looking for guys. But now he wanted to wait until training camp when we have this really deep and competitive receiving core to finally start making some plays. It's too late. Steven Sims has been cut by the Washington football team. He was waived early. Ron Rivera addressed it too. He said that he wanted to release him as soon as possible so that he could get a chance to catch on with another team, just like Kelvin Harmon. Release him sooner rather than later if you already know you're going to release him. That way they can catch on to another team, especially like before this third preseason game. Maybe a team is more likely to sign a Kelvin Harmon or a Steven Sims because they're like, well, we have another preseason game to see what they can do. So let's pick them up and at least give them a chance in that preseason game type of thing. But yeah, man, that boy Steven Sims is gone. But in this video, we have to analyze the 10 remaining wide receivers on this team. Are they going to keep 6 receivers or 7 receivers? These 10 receivers, are they fighting for 6 spots or 7 spots? We're going to analyze all of that, going receiver by receiver, case by case, to see why someone should or shouldn't be one of those last receivers to make the roster. And before we do that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Also, make sure you check out the rest of the channel. All of my videos are organized in playlists. I have a comedy playlist for all of my funny videos. Go check out my rookie film sessions. I'm trying to get as many done before the regular season as possible. We also have those fantasy leagues coming up, so be on the lookout for all of that. Of course, I'm live streaming every preseason, every regular season, and I'm speaking into existence every postseason game this season. Without further ado, let's get it. Alright, so first of all, starting with Steven Sims. He was cut early, again, because they wanted to just go ahead and let him find another team to stick on as soon as possible. They tried to do him a favor. But at the same time, David Sharp finally was activated off of the COVID-19 reserve list, so somebody had to go. They figured it would be best for Steven Sims from both parties for the reasons I've already explained. Even though I'm not entirely too sure if David Sharp's even going to make the team, but I guess they feel like they need more offensive line depth than wide receiver depth as of right now for training camp and all of that. And just random, if you care, Steven Sims had 61 receptions for 575 yards and 5 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons in the NFL with us. And also, just to remind y'all again, we went from 90 players to 85 last Tuesday, August 17th, and then we have to do the same thing this Tuesday, as in tomorrow, August 24th, by 4 p.m. we have to cut it from 85 to 80, and then the Tuesday after that, August 31st, we have to cut it from 80 to 53. Again, it's something new that the league is doing this year. It may stick around forever. We usually just went from 90 throughout the entire offseason, then 53 right before the regular season. Now it's 90 for the majority of the offseason, then we cut it down to 85 week later, 80 week later, 53. Steven Sims was just part of the second wave of cuts. But now we're left with 10 wide receivers: Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Deandre Brown, Adam Humphries, Cam Sims, Antonio Gandy-Golden, Deandre Carter, Jax Milne, Isaiah Wright, and Tony Brown. And that may actually be the order of likeliness of them making the team. Of course, Terry McLaurin is super number 1. Curtis Samuel super number 2. Deandre Brown is a lock at number 3. Adam Humphries is like a 90% lock at number 4. Cam Sims is like right below that. Not a super duper lock, but I think he's very safe. And then that's 5 receivers right there. So then you have Antonio Gandy-Golden, Deandre Carter, Jax Milne, Isaiah Wright, and Tony Brown. It's still kind of crazy that Tony Brown's on the roster, even though Steven Sims isn't. But again, I truly believe it when Rivera says they wanted to just go ahead and release Steven Sims early so that he can go and catch on with another team. Because Steven Sims has to be better than Tony Brown. Much as we laugh about Steven Sims, especially in the return game, he's a better receiver and returner than Tony Brown. But yeah, you have those 5 guys fighting for potentially 1 or 2 spots. And first up, who we're going to talk about is AGG. Antonio Gandy Golden. Interesting situation. First of all, JP Finlay said, quote, a consensus seems to be building for the 6 wide receivers on the roster. Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Adam Humphries, De'Ami Brown, Cam Sims, and Antonio Gandy Golden as the 6th one. He said also, quote, frankly, no other player has done enough to push for a 7th spot. That's really interesting to hear. According to JP Finlay, maybe they're considering keeping 7 receivers, but there hasn't been a 7th receiver that has looked good enough for them to take a roster spot from somewhere else, like offensive line or running back. Now that Jared Patterson is balling, we already know the organization really loves Peyton Barber, so we're very likely to keep 4 running backs, which takes a spot from one of those other position groups. I mean, the DB group is deep and competitive, offensive line, running back. Even if we were to keep 7 receivers, we got to take a spot from one of those. And like I've been saying all throughout the offseason, these receivers on the back end, on the outside looking in, are not only competing against the other receivers, they're competing against other guys across the team. Steven Sims was competing against Derek Forrest to see if it was worth it keeping Steven Sims as a 7th receiver over keeping Derek Forrest as a 8th or 9th DB or something like that. That's why Jared Patterson balling out in the preseason is very telling, because now that's pushing for us to keep a 4th running back spot, and the fact that he looks so good in special teams, that makes it harder for guys like Deandre Carter, Jax Milne, and Steven Sims to make the team. I feel like Jared Patterson's 36-yard return against the Bengals on Thursday is one of the reasons Steven Sims got cut today. And Rivera has been preaching positional flex since he's gotten here. And if you're going to be a running back or a DB or wide receiver that barely makes his team, you also need to be able to contribute to special teams. That's why guys like Troy Apke, Jared Norris, David Mayo are actually quite likely to make this team, because Nate Kaxer gets the choice to pick a handful of guys to make this team that are just straight ballers and stars in special teams. You have Cam Sims, Troy Apke, David Mayo, and Jared Norris, who can all contribute in special teams coverage. Then you have Jax Milne, Deandre Carter, Steven Sims, who just got cut, and now Jared Patterson, and also Isaiah Wright to an extent, can contribute in special teams returning. If you can't do both very well, if you can't play your natural position on offense or defense and contribute in special teams when you're one of these guys on the outside looking in, it's very unlikely that you make the team. Because Derek Forrest was supposedly a special teams ace coming out of college, but I haven't been hearing much buzz from him coming out of camp as far as his special teams contribution. So we'll see if he makes the team. I mean, he had that really ugly preseason play against the Bengals where he bit on a play action super bad and was completely out of place. That may have hurt him. Hopefully that fumble didn't hurt him, because that was just a terrible call by the refs. But that play action that got him, ugly for him. But back to the receivers. You have Antonio Gandy Golden. First of all, he's a 4th round pick. Secondly, you can't teach his height. The only receiver on this team, excluding the tight ends, taller than him is Cam Sims, and it's only by an inch. And then you already released another contested catcher in Harmon, so that's slightly less players that are like 3rd down, contested catch, red zone target type of guys. But like I've been saying, it's harder to make the team as one of those guys this year rather than last year, because now we have potentially 3 tight ends that can do it. Last year, going into the regular season, with us not even knowing if Logan Thomas could do it, we were all like, bro, it's either Cam Sims or if AGG gets right, those are our only 2 with Kelvin Harmon injured. Now, we know Logan Thomas can do it. I believe John Bates will be able to do it. I believe Samus Race will be able to do it. Hopefully sooner rather than later. And then you already have Cam Sims, who's finally putting together a consistent camp, even though that fumble in the preseason was horrible. And then you also have Antonio Gandy Golden as well. So like this, looking for a tall guy to make a contested catch in the back of the end zone on like 3rd and goal, it went from last year going into the regular season, the only guy we really know we have is Cam Sims, to now you have Logan Thomas, John Bates, potentially Samus Reyes, Cam Sims, and potentially Antonio Gandy Golden as well. That's why Kelvin Harmon got niched out. But with Kelvin Harmon gone, it is more likely for Antonio Gandy Golden to make it, because you still need guys like that. Even if your tight ends can do it, it would still be nice to have some receivers that can. And I like Cam Sims, but Antonio Gandy Golden had a pretty nice game against the Bengals, and he showed that he can truly make those contested catches. I mean, a very similar situation. Cam Sims kind of fell in bounds, but then bobbled the ball while falling, whereas Antonio Gandy Golden did a great job of boxing out, made sure he didn't even have to get close to the sideline to where you could argue if it was out of bounds or not, like he did against the Patriots. He already improved on that. He fixed that mistake against the Bengals, went up there and caught that contested catch touchdown, literally in the same place that Cam Sims didn't in the same game. So AGG's potential is definitely higher than the Cam Sims, but Cam Sims, as of right now, you could assume is the better receiver, but we'll see. And again, Cam Sims can also contribute in special teams. He's a really good punts coverage player to go down there and make a tackle or to force a fair catch. So Cam Sims is still very likely to make this team, but it's definitely looking like, and I agree with JP Finlay, that Antonio Gandy Golden looks like he's very likely to make this roster. If they only keep 6, he's probably the guy taking the 6th spot. And then you have Deandre Carter. I mean, he was literally brought here as a returner. And as of right now on our team, he's the most experienced and dependable returner on the entire roster. And he has some explosion too. You can see that through his highlights throughout his career so far. And it's crazy too because he's looked good in camp at slot, but that may not be enough, especially with Jaret Patterson looking like a return game gem. I love Deandre Carter, and what he brings to the return game looks very dependable. I mean, after that Patriots game, I was like, oh yeah, he should be pretty much a lock to make this roster as a returner because we haven't seen somebody this dependable and consistent at getting 19 yards almost every return like he was. But then now you got JPP stepping up, and again, if Deandre Carter, even though he's looked good in camp in the slot, he hasn't looked good enough. And you already have Adam Humphries in front of him in the slot, technically Curtis Samuel, even though they want to move him everywhere. And then you have Terry McLaurin and De'Ami Brown that can play X, Y, and Z. So it's looking really ugly for this slot receiver competition. And if you're just not standing out, even if you are a really good returner, it's just ugly. It's just a numbers game right now. Not exactly sure if he makes the team. I really don't. Definitely our most dependable returner right now, but that may not be enough. They may go with the other guys who have more potential on the offensive side of the ball, and they'll just work on developing that return game over time. And then Jax Milne. First of all, it was a report from John Comm that Rivera said that they see Jax Milne as their future franchise slot. And then today, Jax Milne was getting work with the ones. And in the preseason game against the Bengals, he was getting work with the ones. But sadly, he didn't look really good against them. He was struggling to separate. But today, he looked pretty good against our ones. And our defense is better. So I don't know what he was doing in that preseason game. But it's really interesting that he's getting consistent work with the ones now. This may be an audition. This is like, all right, we released Steven Sims. We don't know about Deandre Carter. We're going to give you the most work with the ones out of any of these guys that are on the outside looking in. Even with Antonio Gandy Golden included, Jax Milne is getting the most work with the ones these past few days, including the preseason. So this is like, all right, we're giving you every opportunity to prove that you need to be on this team. You either go out there and don't make plays or you do. And then today he had a really good diving catch one play, but then Trey Apke also broke up a pass towards Jax Milne later on in the practice. But like, Jax Milne had a great touchdown on a fade route, and Terry McLaurin was out there screaming good release, good effing release. He was super hype about it. And you know, since Terry McLaurin's been working with Doug Baldwin all offseason, literally working on his release, that's something he's noticing now. That's something he's been working on in the offseason, and so I trust him to have a good eye to see if Jax Milne's release is actually good or not. So the fact that his release is already reportedly improved since just the preseason game against the Bengals on Thursday, that's good to hear. And then the diving catch I mentioned earlier, it was a throw from Ryan Fitzpatrick, but it was also a really good route from Jax Milne. So again, now that he's starting with the ones in the slot and he's making plays at the same time, who knows, Jax Milne may find a way to make this team because he's also a pretty decent returner as well. Haven't seen anything necessarily explosive from him, but he's been dependable. He fields the punt well, fair catches when he needs to, and then when he's able to return, he gets a decent amount of yards. And man, that's not something to be really excited about, but boy, did we need just even a little bit of that last year. Just somebody that we knew for a fact could catch a punt, because boy, we did not have that last year. And then Isaiah Wright, undrafted free agent, brought in with the hopes of being a solid returner and a versatile chess piece on offense. Because remember how like Antonio Gibson was a receiver in college, but we're trying to develop him into a running back. Isaiah Wright was kind of like a running back, and we're trying to develop him into a receiver. But just like Antonio Gibson, he can play both. So he has a lot of potential, but his development is moving way too slowly for a roster that's ready to go win now, basically. We may not be Super Bowl contenders, but we're definitely not in like a super rebuild mode. But at the same time, Rivera just praised them in his presser today, saying that Isaiah Wright, Jaret Patterson, Torrey McTyer, and Jax Milne are among the players who have flashed in camp so far. And then that's great company to be in, because Torrey McTyer, Jaret Patterson, and Jax Milne have been balling out, especially Jaret Patterson and Torrey McTyer. So if you're in the same conversation as them, you must be doing something right. But at the same time, Isaiah Wright is the only one out of those 4 players who hasn't gotten any first team reps in preseason or camps. So even though he shined a little bit, is it enough? Doubt it. And then you also have Tony Brown, who I don't think he's going to make this roster past Tuesday, as in tomorrow by 4 p.m. I think he's one of the players that gets cut. We need to cut 5 more guys to get from 85 to 80. Remember, Steven Sims was cut to bring David Sharp off of the COVID-19 list. So we still have 85 guys on roster. I doubt Tony Brown makes it past Tuesday. Highly doubt it. So he's out of contention. But, I mean, again, there's good cases for everybody here. HGG is the height you can't teach, the potential. Deandre Carter is literally your best returner right now, at least the most dependable. Jax Milne is your potentially future franchise slot. Isaiah Wright is getting praise. It's really interesting. We're going to have to keep track of this. I just wanted to break down everybody's cases on why they should and shouldn't make the roster. Definitely get in the comment section and let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Who do you feel like should make the roster? Who do you want to make the roster? Because those may be 2 different things. Who do you feel like will make the roster? Who do you want to make the roster? Those can be 2 completely different things. So give both of those in the comment section. Also, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points. Give me your predictions as well. Also, please like this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. Also, please subscribe if you haven't, of course. And as always, man, I appreciate all of my supporters. Shouts out to everybody that donates to the channel. Big shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose names you see scrolling on the screen right now. Man, I really appreciate all y'all, man. For real, I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.